You're listening to the Microsoft Innovation Podcast, where we explore the intersection of people, business, and technology. This year, we're adding a new show to our lineup, The AI Advantage, to help you learn the skills you need to thrive in the AI era.
Welcome to the MVP Show. My intention is that you listen to the stories of these MVP guests and are inspired to become an MVP and bring value to the world through your skills. If you have not checked it out already, I do a YouTube series called How to Become an MVP. The link is in the show notes. With that, let's get on with the show. Today's guest is from Copenhagen in Denmark. He works at Projectum as a senior consultant. He was first awarded as MVP in 2024. He is certified on the Power Platform as a solution architect, as well as a Power Platform evangelist. He writes blog posts, runs a YouTube channel featuring the Power Platform training material. You can find links to his bio and socials in the show notes for this episode. Welcome to the show, Soren.
Thank you very much, Mark. Thanks for having me. That's quite an introduction.
Good to have you on the show. I'm looking forward to hearing your story and you know what your journey has been, of course, into the Power Platform. How'd your career take you that way? But before we get going, tell me a bit about food, family, and fun. What do you do when you're not in front of your computer?
Yes, so fun. Let's talk with that. I'm pretty excited about making music. So I've been drumming, playing guitars, and also actually I have made a little bit of hip hop rap earlier in my life. But everything in sort of in relation to music. I have an electronic drum kit at home set up right now. And also have a guitar just lying around. So music is a pretty big part of my life. That's one of those things that just de-stresses you and gets you in a different mood and a different vibe.
Yes. So that's fun. What else? Tell me about food.
That's a good question. So I like cooking. My definitely my go-to is Mexican food. It can be a bit tricky to find it always in Denmark. It's getting better, but yeah, trying new recipes in general. Sort of grew up with parents that wanted me to. We had to cook from we were kids, so sort of got the hang of that early. So like experimenting with different kind of things. My mom used to travel in ex-Yugoslavia a lot, so she sort of picked up a lot of dishes from there as well. So sort of always been exposed to a lot of different types of food. So yeah, but there's you know how it is. There's always staples, and so there's always your sort of go-to. For me, it's lasagna. It just always works. But yeah, no, I like trying a lot of different things. I'm not a picky eater, so I'll eat anything.
Nice. Who's the most famous author in Denmark?
That's a good question. Well, I guess everybody knows sort of Hans Christian Andersen and Kierkegaard and stuff like that. Actually, in terms of modern authors,
I was thinking Hans Christian Andersen. I didn't realize that he was so prolific when he, The Little Mermaid, The Ugly Duckling, which are very famous in I know English culture, Snow Queen, and even the Emperor's New Clothes, which I liken that in IT so often. I use that story to go like, is anyone going to call out this is just marketing? There's actually no reality here whatsoever, and we're all believing. Like right now, I feel that's where we are with agents. Everyone's like, agents are amazing. We're doing it. And I'm just like, the concept is amazing. I agree. I think I'm going to give it another year before I'm going to start going, hey, it's going to totally change my life, as in, yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's one of those things where because we also do, so I sometimes do like AI courses and sort of, and people they're happy about if you're taking it sort of from a very basic level, without getting too much into technology, because we're still doing the non-technology talk, but just clearing this topic out of the way. I still want to see that thing where, you're talking to people and they really go like, yes, I can definitely see how I can use this in my life. Because there are some of the things, and just on a basic level, talking Copilot or ChatGPT and stuff like that, there are things where people can see, okay, this is faster or this is nicer, and yeah, it's good, but it's not that sort of epiphany or sort of that, okay, this is really going to be awesome. I can really see this. I'm going to go home and use this straight away. So I completely know what you mean with the agents. That it's a little bit of it's being sold as a sort of, it's going to be, it's groundbreaking. It's going to change the world forever. But yeah, let's see.
Let's see. Yeah, as in the marketing always seems to be ahead of the reality. Tell me, how did you get into the Power Platform? How did you first come across it? What was the first day that you remember being exposed to the Power Platform?
So it was pretty much 5 years ago. I started with, or actually I was at Projectum, the company I worked with. They had a course, sort of the Power Apps in a Day. So they were running those in Denmark, and I attended one of those courses, and I didn't have any experience with the Power Platform whatsoever. But then I just I could see there was something about this. This was pretty exciting, and I was at that point, I was sort of looking for a little bit of career change in my life. I wasn't working with IT at that moment, but I wanted to do that. I could see this is sort of, because I've always been a bit of a tech guy, a little bit of a sort of nerdy. So I knew I sort of wanted to do that, and I hadn't sort of worked with that properly. And I thought, okay, and then I sent them an application, and they were like, okay, you don't really have any experience, but they were starting out Projectum at that time with the Power Platform, just sort of early days, and didn't really know a lot about it themselves. So we could sort of go on the journey together. So they were like, all right, let's see what happens if we hire somebody that doesn't know anything about it, that's going to sort of learn on the job. So yeah, it started out like that, and fortunately, I just hit it right at the right time, the right place, the right time, and then just immediately fell in love with it, because it was such a, in terms of not knowing, sort of not having because I wasn't sort of established in IT. I wasn't a developer. I didn't know I wasn't an IT consultant before that. But because of the Power Platform, it's just there's so many things that it's easy to pick up. And when you if you have the right the right tools for it, and a little bit of drive for it, then it's really easy. And that's also what sort of drives me when I'm doing the sort of my own blogging and YouTube channels. Is that I like the idea of saying to somebody, if you come from nothing, you can still do this pretty easily. It's not like a huge barrier. Without getting too much ahead into that, but that was my start in the Power Platform 5 years ago, starting with Projectum.
And what's your role now? So after 5 years, how would you describe yourself to somebody asking?
Dynamics Minds is one event you don't want to miss. Microsoft product managers and industry leaders from all over the world converge in Slovenia to explore the latest in Dynamics 365, the Power Platform, and Copilot. Expect 3 days of in-person community connection, trailblazing insights, and a location sure to inspire our creativity. Early bird tickets are on sale now, and podcast listeners get 10% off by registering via the link in the show notes. Hope to see you there.
So fortunately, it's still a lot of the same. So of course, taking on more responsibility, but fortunately, I can still use a lot of my time working with companies, helping them. We're making apps for them. We have sort of a standard solution. So we have some managed solutions that we're installing already, and then sort of configuring on top of that. But I get to use a lot of my time. I was actually just before this call, I was just doing adding fields, making a form, making views, stuff like that. And because we work in model-driven apps mostly, so not canvas apps that much. So just doing basic Power Platform stuff, which is just really nice. I get to do that, but then also. I mean, with slowly in time, it started becoming also more mentoring, helping others, getting better. So when there's new people starting in the company, helping them, and then also I'm sort of internally within Projectum. I'm sort of what we call a tech lead, so also sort of setting the setting a framework and setting the direction for how we work with the Power Platform, what is sort of best practice, stuff like that. So get to use as much as my knowledge and ideas about it as much as possible, which is awesome. So I get to talk about the Power Platform all day.
What are you most proud of in your career?
So far, it's definitely been I mean, being here and being able to work with this, and I mean the MVP title is of course something that I'm really proud of. It's sort of getting the recognition for all the work, but in general, I just sort of what I'm driven about is what drives me is just being able to help people. So every single day seeing that sort of I'm able to either make it easier or make it nicer or somebody, or sort of being able to help someone towards the goals, and it's usually the realization of, okay, we had this process before. We were working in Excel sheets, or we were working in whatever sort of old school software, and saying, okay, then we moved to the Power Platform. Everything was just so much nicer and snappier and easier. And the fact that they could also sort of immediately make changes themselves, see it themselves. It doesn't have to be they don't have to be a developer. It can be citizen developers, and we can make everybody a citizen developer. I love seeing that, because there's always that, like if you have an SAP system and they're saying, okay, we need a new field. Well, it's going to take 2 consultants 2 weeks to make a new field. But here it's just, you can just do it yourself. I can show you how to do it, and that's fine. We'll do a quick session, and then next week you'll just make your own fields. It's no problem. I love that aspect. That really sort of, it makes me happy every day that I can say, you know what, you don't even need to pay me for it. You can just do it yourself. It's fine.
Tell me, in the evangelist type role, I assume that you have a bag of stories that you tell, right? When you want to illustrate a point, or, something about the Power Platform, it might be you refer to working in a particular industry, on a particular project, on a particular workload. What are kind of those key ones that you pull out to from time to time? Those stories that you tell is with that evangelist hat on, to inspire potential future customers of the art of the possible.
Yeah, so I have there's actually this one guy that was just there's a couple, but there's one that sort of comes to mind immediately, that sort of. And in the beginning, I had been a little pensive. I was thinking, okay, because he was like a little bit of an old school guy. That was sort of he was, and sort of his approach seemed like he just wanted us to do it. But then he became a little bit curious about that. I think he sort of a switch also, or something switched in his mind about sort of the platform and the possibilities. And then he started also being curious about it, and you could see that when he was applying that curiosity. And then at one point he said, before we were supposed to do a sort of a training session or something like that, and before the training session, he had been in there, not even making new fields or changes to forms. He had also been making changes to business processes. He'd been making changes to scripts. He'd been making all these kind of things. I was sort of blown away by it. I was thinking, wow, this is amazing. I mean, we have a consultant working for us that don't do that within the first 6 months. And he was just doing it within a couple of weeks. So sort of that curiosity, but it also said that, I don't know how tech-minded he was. Of course, it requires a little bit of ability to do that, but still, I was just amazed that he was able to do that. And every single time where we I can always bring up that story that, I mean, we have this guy that he just does it, and I don't have to worry about it. It's not like, you shouldn't really touch that because then you might break things. I know whenever he does something, he'll do it the right way. He thinks about it. He knows that, should I do this? Should I do this? And then if he's in doubt, he'll write to us. But most of the times he'll make great stuff. And he's happy. The company's happy, and we're happy. I mean, it's fine that we're not billing them, because they're always happy because they're doing exactly the things they want themselves. So they also feel the sense of autonomy and feel like they own their own software on the platform, and they can sort of control it, and so they sort of they take ownership of it in a greater way. It's amazing to see. So that's definitely my go-to story.
You've got the whole tool set that makes up the Power Platform. If you're only allowed to work with two of the tools, which two tools would you not give up?
So how are we defining the tools? Are we talking about?
So Power Apps, Power Automate, Power Pages, Power BI. We'll even leave that one in there. And what's that? Is that all our powers? Yeah, I think that's most of them. I'll even give you AI Builder in the mix as well.
So I would say, I mean, Power Apps is, of course, I have to say that Power Pages. So it's also easy for me because I don't do a lot of Power Pages. So I don't think I see I don't think I see as much of the potential in it as there is. I realize some of the things you can do with it, but we don't. The customers we're working with don't really use Power Pages, so I guess it's sort of free for me to just we'll just throw that away. So sorry to anyone that's actually just really crazy about Power Pages, but so we'll keep Power Apps and definitely Power BI, because it's sort of it's always what sort of ties everything together. It's I mean, without the reporting, it's sort of, I feel like we're still halfway there, or I mean, somebody's got to look at the data at some point, and it's also the people that are paying for the bill a lot of the times that are they're on the Power BI side. They're not always using the Power Apps themselves. So I would say it would make it pretty impossible to get rid of Power BI. And I also really like Power BI. But I think Power BI is sort of it's sort of, they snug it in there. I'm not. I mean, it's not. It's Power Platform, but it's. I mean, is it the same Power Platform as Power Apps and Power Pages and Power Automate? Actually, Power Automate. Oh man, I can't. Yeah, that's really tough.
I'm surprised you're giving up your automation layer.
Yeah, no, I just realized. But it's oh man, this is impossible.
You've got some charting objects in Power Apps, right, that you could use?
Yeah. I mean, I guess I could use Logic Apps. Yeah.
And model driven.
Yeah, I guess I could use Logic Apps, so I could go the Azure route instead of Power Automate in a lot of cases.
You could use PCF to build out your visualizations.
That's true. Oh, but that would be a nightmare. I mean, because I'm not good enough for that.
Interesting thought experiment, right?
Definitely, yeah. That's a fun one.
Yeah, I fundamentally feel that within 5 years, none of us will touch Power Automate. Nobody. Or Logic Apps.
How so?
It'll all be done by AI. The tool will still be there. We will not need to go, what trigger will I use? You know, I think it'll be a much more us explaining what we need, and it then creates an optimized version or way of doing it. It'll decide what APIs it needs to consume. Where does the data sit? You know, is this going to be an on-demand? Is it going to be synchronous or asynchronous? All those type of things. I think AI will run the pros and cons and make the best informed decision at a speed much faster than what we could manually do it if we were, attempting to build those out ourselves.
I think that's a good point. I remember when was it April Dunham that did the?
I think that about Power Apps as well.
I think April Dunham did the demo last year at the Power Platform conference in Las Vegas, where she showed the sort of the first Copilot things that were happening in Power Automate, and already then, so we're talking a year ago, and they had just started with actually rolling out Power or Copilot and the AI, and already then it was actually pretty awesome. You could do a lot. You could tell it, hey, I just want a flow that does this and this and this, and it's only becoming more powerful each month and quarter and year. So I think you have a good point there. The question about, of course, Power Apps is, it goes both ways, because it's still a question of there's so many things that goes into it. The whole talking about the design process, but of course it could be that we're then just using all of our time talking about the design process and talking about all the things behind, and talking about the process and the sort of the human interaction in it, and what do you want to do, and not doing the app itself. It's an interesting thought, and it'll be really interesting to see where we are in 5 years. Definitely.
The next 5 years, I think, are just going to be literally mind-blowing as into how far or how fast we will travel. For me, even just as talking to you, then I just wonder by the end of 2025 how much of our screen, our computer monitors, will be fully AI aware. So therefore, to be able to interact through a microphone, through a keyboard or a mouse if we want, but it will have context of where our mouse is, what our focus area is on screen, and therefore be able to literally say, or even you imagine it running in the background and looking at the repetitive patterns that we do and how we do work, and it just starts learning them. It just starts, you do it this way, you do it that way, and then one day it says, do you want me to help you with that? And all of a sudden it does it in a fraction of the time, and then it goes, you know what, I could actually improve on how this could work, because you have not been thinking about this functionality, and it could be I'm not educated on it, so I'm like, educate me on it, bang, and it educates me on it, and I'm like, heck, I had a blind spot to that way of doing it. It picked up the blind spot. It helped me with it. Now we can even be more efficient, create better experiences, whatever it might be. I just think that, a lot's going to change, right, in the next 5 years.
No, and I agree. It's fun. I had an experience earlier this week with we have a student worker here that, and she was showing me how, it's this thing where somebody's showing you how they work with Power Apps, and you're like, I don't do it that way. You do it in a different way. Like we're supposed to be clicking on the same menus. We're supposed to be doing the same things, but we're actually not. We're doing it in different ways. And she showed me a way that she was working, and I'm like, that was really smart. I never thought of that. I've been doing it for 5 years, and I didn't realize I could do that. And she was like, "Yeah, it'll save you a lot of time." Yeah, it will. But just back to your point, that AI could definitely pointed that out for me. It could just have improved that immensely straight away. And so it's just, we get stuck in our own ways. We get stuck in sort of doing things the same way because we know that's how to do it. It's just like people that still use classic mode or legacy mode. But Microsoft is putting a lot of money into making Copilot much better every single day. So I definitely agree. A lot of things are coming.
If someone asked you for advice about taking a career in the Power Platform now, is it too late? Do you think there's much runway? What advice would you give them?
I think there's still going to be a lot of demand for it, because I don't think, even if AI makes it easier, I don't think it's going away. So I don't think it's and it's one of those fields that is I think one thing is that it's because it's so easy to pick up, just sort of relatively speaking, as opposed to saying, okay, you have to learn C# or whatever from the ground up. It's pretty easy to become a citizen developer and start making apps, and then you sort of graduate into making more awesome apps. And then it's also at least for me, it was sort of a gateway into all other Microsoft things. So then you sort of get to okay, then you're also doing a little bit of things in Azure, and then you're also doing a little bit of things in SharePoint or whatever. So it's sort of for me at least, you're never really just completely doing Power Platform stuff. So even if the Power Platform develops into something where you're not really needed as much as a developer anymore, or then there's still other as long as you sort of keep your ear to the ground and sort of also are willing to learn new things, then I would definitely say getting into Power Apps is still a great thing. And but then of course keep learning and expanding your skill set. That's what we all need to do anyway, right?
Hey, thanks for listening. I'm your host, Business Application MVP Mark Smith, otherwise known as the NZ365 Guy. If you like the show and want to be a supporter, check out buymeacoffee.com/NZ365 Guy. Thanks again, and see you next time.
Are you ready to accelerate your career in the Microsoft ecosystem? The 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, created by Mark Smith, is your opportunity to create a personalized pathway to success. Join over 1,200 alumni from more than 70 countries who have achieved remarkable results, from promotions to new job opportunities. Take it from Nathan, who said, "Since completing the 90-Day Mentoring Challenge, I've become an MVP in business applications and doubled my income." Or from Parves, who shares, "I've never felt as inspired or energized about my career as I do now." Sign up at arcor.nz365guy.com. You can find the link in the show notes. And if you use the code podcast, you'll get 10% off.